have a very, very interesting and important guest with us today. We are thrilled to welcome you, Madam Titi Savage. She's our guest speaker for today's webinar on mastering communication and collaboration for tech operators. She has over 20 years experience in legal leadership roles across different sectors, across banking, financial services, technology, and payments. She's a seasoned legal counsel renowned for her strategic insights and collaboration skills. So trust me when I say that she's going to have a lot to tell us today on how to manage communication as techies, right? And interestingly, this is one of her passion because she just loves to share insights on communication that would help drive business success. Thank you, and it is a pleasure to have you here with us, Ma. Welcome.
Thank you, Zara. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing very well. Okay, so without spending too much time, please get into it, Ma.
All right. So I actually have a presentation which I'd like to share. Let me see. So I will be taking I'll be taking us through a couple of some important issues which we must consider when we talk about some issues we must consider when we talk about communication, we talk about collaboration.
Communication is such an important topic, especially for techies, considering that they would need to speak to people that don't even understand tech languages. They need to speak to customers. They need to share the expectations of their clients with their colleagues as well. So I know that this is timely, and I'm glad that we're having this discussion.
Yes. So today we'll be talking about it's a career in tech webinar series. So what I imagine is that anyone listening today to this actually intends to build a sound career in technology. It could be fintech, health tech, whatever part of tech you intend to build a career in. This webinar is actually right for you. So we'll be going through important issues on how to effectively communicate and collaborate as an operator in the tech industry. So I'll be introducing, Zara's already introduced me, right? And she's given us a clear idea of what we'll be doing today. So today we'll be going through communication, right? Effective communication, the nuances in communication. Why is communication important to a tech operator? Some techniques, you know, when you think of communication, some techniques you can employ for different aspects of communication. Communication is particularly important to tech operators because most of the time, one person can't do the work alone. Other people communicate and enhances the quality of work at the end of the day. Then we'll close by speaking about emerging trends in communication and teamwork. What are the global trends which, as a newbie, as a tech operator, you must be aware of? Because the world is now a global village, and being aware of these trends puts you in the right position, in the right frame of mind, or the right position to ensure that you're properly positioned for whatever opportunities would arise. Now, communication and collaboration essentially are abilities, right, to communicate information, ideas, and feedback, and to work together towards a common goal. So the entire objective of communication and collaboration is information, ideas, feedback, and working together. So this is particularly important in the tech industry because most of the time, projects in the tech sector are complex. You always have different moving parts. You have one thing, you have branding working, you have product, you have engineering team, you have the partnership team, you have the sales team, you have the marketing team, all working on one issue, but they all have to ensure that they are syncing right on this project. So the complexity of what happens in the tech sector requires and demands that anybody in the tech sector must be able to effectively communicate clearly and concisely, and you also be able to collaborate with other people. Now, you also require communication for client and stakeholder interaction. What do I mean by this? I mean, as a tech person, you don't do your tech work for yourself. I mean, it's really, you can't do the reason why you actually are putting this work together is because the public, because of someone who needs your services somewhere. And then apart from the customer or the client, there are various other stakeholders involved in any tech project. I mean, there are internal stakeholders, there are external stakeholders such as regulators. Now, you need to be able to communicate with these people effectively to ensure that you have smooth interaction with them. And most importantly, if you want to have success, a successful career, you can't do without communication. Today, communication is a soft skill. If you have that on your resume, on your CV, it's an ideal. Today, it's almost taken for granted that as you're aspiring to move higher in your career, you have learned techniques in communication, you have learned effective communication, and that in a team, you'd also be able to collaborate in such a way as to contribute effectively to the success of an organization. And this essentially is what a sustainable career is, what a successful, sustainable career is all about. You must be able to contribute effectively to the success of an organization. To the principles of effective communication. For communication to be effective, it must be clear and concise. Your communication could be verbal, it could be written. Verbal communication is words, mouth to mouth. You're having conversations. You must always be clear. You must always use words that say exactly what you mean. You must be clear. And then even for written communication, there are certain standards in written communication. You must always communicate for clarity and conciseness. There's no use going on and on and on rambling, right? When you can say whatever you need to say in few short sentences. For effective communication, you need to employ the skills of active listening. What do I mean? Active listening implies that, you're not just listening, but you're also absorbing whatever information is being communicated to you. And you can do this effectively if, as you listen, you ensure that you're not commenting, you're not passing any judgment to the person, you're not judgmental, you're just listening for the facts. You do not interrupt the speaker, and then when the person is done, you take a pause. You're not, sometimes it's like when someone is speaking to you, the regular way people do is you're almost waiting to interrupt so you can say yours, you can say something in between. No, you take a pause after the person has, so to be sure that the person is done, and then you can respond. And one technique to employ active listening is once the person is done, summarize, the main points, right? And then if there are anything not very clear, clarify, ask clarifying questions. Okay, what did you mean when you used this word? What did you mean by this? When you're sure that you are clear about what this person has communicated, then you can respond. That is active listening. And if you employ the skills of active listening, you find out that certain things are easier for you when you are interacting with people. There's also the realm of non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication is when you communicate without words. There are lots. We're Nigerians, we're Africans. Body language. Your eye contact. For instance, sometimes nonverbal communication can be determined by the culture in a given society. When you're speaking to certain cultures, when you're speaking to your elders, you don't look them in the eyes. It's seen as being too confrontational. Meanwhile, for the white man, if European or American, it is speaking to you and don't look them into the eyes, they take it as a form of disrespect. It means that you're not paying attention. So you need to be aware of that. All this, you need to be aware of these forms of communication. Body language, eye contact, your facial expression. Someone is speaking about a serious issue and it appears as if you have a sarcastic expression. You need to watch, how your face appears, what it's expressing to the person whom you're communicating to. And then another principle of effective communication is feedback. Feedback is very necessary in the workplace, in the business environment, as techies. Feedback is because through feedback, you get to be able to improve. Feedback informs the process of improvement, informs the process of transformation, informs the process of, doing better and getting better. You just find yourself at a certain level and never being able to do better than that. However, feedback must be constructive and it must be effective. Constructive, meaning that feedback, there must be an objective to the feedback. You mustn't be giving feedback just for the mere sake of giving feedback. There must be an objective to the feedback, and the feedback must be clear and particular to the issues which the feedback is required for. Also, this is really important in the tech sector because this other issue, appropriate channels, is very important because there are lots of channels today. We'll see when we talk about communication and collaboration, there are lots of channels of communication these days. There are asynchronous channels, there are synchronous, you can communicate, with different tools on the phone, WhatsApp, the Slack, the emails, these days, gone are the days when you write letters, and wait for a response, after a long time. However, despite the fact that there are many channels of communication, we must be careful to be sure that we're employing the right channels within the given context. For instance, when you talk about internal communication, it means information shared within an organization. There are appropriate channels for internal communication. It's not appropriate to use channels meant for internal communication for an external communication, right? So, and vice versa. It doesn't make sense to be using a channel such as email meant for external communication for an internal communication, except where you know that the recipients of that information also include external parties. So you must always be conscious of your channels of communication. And then certain channels of communication are informal and some channels of communication are formal. So we are communicating something formal, be sure to use the appropriate formal channel for the communication. For instance, in certain organizations, if you do not send me an email about an issue, you have not communicated on that issue. So sometimes also channels of communication depend on the organization, with which you have to do with. Some organizations, you can't be sending official information on WhatsApp. You can't send on your personal phone. If you want to send official information, Slack for certain organizations is the appropriate channel. Or worst case scenario, if you can't access Slack, an email. So you must be careful to ensure that you match the information, right, to the appropriate channels. So those are the basic principles for effective communication. Now, communication can be digital. Recently, we've had a I mean, like I mentioned, gone are the days where communication is, it's paper form where you write a letter and you put the letter in an envelope, you go to the post office, you mail the letter. Gone are the days. Now, most communication is digital. And what do I mean by that? Communication is through a tool. I mean, right now I am communicating this webinar to you through Zoom. This is digital communication. And, and there's an appropriate etiquette for how you use these types of digital tools. So there's email, right? And there are appropriate etiquettes for email communication. For instance, it's clear that when you do an email, you write an email and you put your message in all caps. The import is that you are screaming, you're shouting. It's rude to do that. So just the same way as you would not be shouting at someone who you want to communicate with, in an email, it's improper to put information in caps, right? And also, in an email, there are certain required, for instance, if it's an official email within an official context, it's nice to have a sign-off, a sign-off message, probably with your name, with designation, some address, or some means to reach you apart from email. So all these things have, there are like etiquette rules for how these digital tools are managed. Another interesting thing is the time for response. Someone sends you an email. Of course, you're not required to respond immediately, because the idea is that an email is asynchronous. What that means is that you can deliver a message by email, right? And there should be, it's okay if there's a time gap between the email delivery and a response. Be that as it may, your response time should not be so long, right, as to make the person who has sent you an email wait, for a response. Your response time must be appropriate. Your email, right? The type of words you use in your email must be appropriate. An email is written. It's not like words that you can take back. Once you've written an email, you've written it, you put the words on paper, and it's there. It doesn't go anywhere else, right? So you must be careful when you're constructing your email. Most of the time, if you are in a bad mood, it's always good to take a step back, and ensure that you don't communicate your mood, whether of anger or whatever, or frustration in your email. It's professional to do emails in a tempered tone, There are lots of examples of professional emails, and I'll just enjoin you to do some further digging, some further how to write emails in a professional manner. Now, another way you can communicate digitally is by having virtual meetings. And for virtual meetings, today, a lot of meetings are virtual. It saves us time, saves you transportation expense, saves you movement expense, so it's convenient. However, even though we have all these advantages to virtual meetings, there are etiquettes for virtual meetings. For instance, you should always ensure that if you're going to have a virtual meeting, then you should be careful about ensuring that the time within which you want to have this meeting is effective. One way to do this is to ensure that you have a preset agenda distributed to all participants in the meeting, right? If you're using your video, it should be clear. Are all parties there should be a policy for it within organizations. There are usually policies. Whenever we're having these sort of meetings, our business weekly review meetings, videos are always on. If we have certain types of meetings, we can have the video off. Issues of you come into a meeting and we can hear background noises. It's quite rude. As you come into a meeting, it's always best to have your mic off, have your audio off, have your mic off so that people don't hear whatever background noise is around you. It's distracting for other people, participants in the meeting. So there are lots of tools these days for digital communication, and I'm sure that beyond the ones I'm going to mention here, there are lots of other tools. For instance, there's Slack, usually used for internal communication. There's Zoom. I'm currently on Zoom right now, this webinar, and there are Google Docs. Now, what this does, it collaborate. So communicating tools helps work, in a collaborative manner, to share ideas. For instance, if you're using Google Docs, it's easy on the spot for you to make corrections and amendments, and for you to agree on what a document, what kind of format, what kind of terms a document should have, what kind of words should be in a document. So this is one of the advantages, right, of being able to use these tools. So if you want to say you're an effective communicator, you must be aware of these tools and you must know how to use them. Now, another importance of communication and collaboration, effective communication, is that it's required when you work as a team. It's very required. It's required when you work as a team. And how do you ensure effective communication and collaboration when you work as a team? One of the first things you must be aware of is you must understand and respect the different roles in a team. You must understand what each person is expected to do, and you must respect it, right? So there's a saying which goes that purpose which is not known is abused. If you don't understand the purpose of the different roles, it's easy for you to abuse them. So understand and respect different roles in the team. And then in the team, you want to give feedback. Always ensure that your feedback is done in a constructive manner. It's done in such a way that the feedback can be received, right, and can actually contribute positively to whatever project you are working on. One effective tool is the sandwich tool in giving feedback. So you say something positive, you layer it on with the feedback you want to give, and then you round off with another positive thing. So what happens is you've communicated, but because you have also sandwiched the communication, the feedback between positive things, you've made it easier. You will make it easier for the person to whom you make it easier for that person to accept and receive this feedback. You don't have to take it. You won't have to take it personal. When you're giving feedback, it must be constructive. It shouldn't be personal. Don't make it about the person. Make it about the issue, which it's the feedback is with regards to. Now, when working as a team, also, it's effective. You be able to communicate effectively if you are aware of collaboration techniques. So, in a team, you need to brainstorm. The different ways to brainstorm. Brainstorming on its own is a technique, a collaboration technique, which you can go and do some research on. So you understand how to brainstorm. How do we solve problems? When you brainstorm, you come up with ideas to solve problems. Then there's also consensus building. You agree, if there are differing ideas and different people have different what's the word now? You have different ideas about an issue, or they have opposing ideas about an issue. You employ the technique of consensus building. Whatever it is that you agree to disagree, whatever it is that you have in common, you build on that, and you find a way to ensure that there is a cohesive working environment where everyone is able to express their ideas, but you're able to reach a consensus that you all agree on. And then also you could delegate. Delegation is really important, where you find that there's someone who has the skills, right? And you realize that, for instance, you do not have the skills, or you do not have the bandwidth to contain the project or the issue. Delegation in a team is an effective technique towards collaboration. So when you delegate, there are also principles for delegation. So you delegate, but however, you must know that you own the results of the delegation. So you must supervise, right? You delegate, but you don't totally abdicate your responsibility. Now, working as a team, effective communication can be employed for conflict resolution. So you must understand different strategies for resolving conflicts to be able to effectively communicate, right, as a team. You must understand how to mediate. You must understand how to negotiate. You know, I mean, for negotiation, there's the Batner method. You just understand that everyone must be seen to be in a winning position for us all to work together effectively as a team. So we're fast coming to the end of our discourse, our webinar. It's just going to be a short discourse before we move into the general issues. Emerging trends in communication and teamwork. These are the emerging global trends. Today, there was a time before 2020 when everybody went to work physically. It was very rare to find a remote-only work organization. But today, there's been an increasing rise in remote work, increasing rise in hybrid teams. And communication is super important, right, in this trend. Today, the people who can work in a organization, remote environment, or a hybrid environment are those who can communicate effectively. I mean, ordinarily, it could be difficult when you see your colleagues every day physically, but you can imagine where most of the time it's either you're communicating on Slack through words, or, it's a video where the full expressions, you can, sometimes it's easy for things to get lost, right, within the cracks in words. I mean, you could be saying something, the person is interpreting something else, but you're not physically present to make it clear that, oh, this is what I mean. This is why you would need to know how to communicate effectively. The remote work and hybrid team trend demands that you must communicate effectively in these environments. Now, along with remote work and hybrid teams, there's also AI and a lot of automation tools. Now, these tools help to enhance communication and project management. You need to be aware of these tools, because these tools are there to help you. They're there to make your project easier to manage, and they're there to help, for instance, they help the cadence of communication. For instance, if there's something you do repeatedly, there are tools that can generate reports for you automatically, so that you don't need somebody communicate. You don't need someone generating these reports for you physically and download it for you. So these are tools which you need to familiarize yourself, that would help to enhance your communication and also help you to manage products and projects better. Now, another emerging trend, global trend, is the trend of inclusive communication. Increasingly, the world is becoming a global village. And it is super important, very important, that when you communicate, you are inclusive. What this means is you must be aware, you must train yourself to be aware of the culture, right, of the people with whom you work with on the same team. I mean, it's global these days. You find Africans working with Asians, working with North Americans, working with, those from the Arab regions. And today, workplaces, remote work is a hybrid. It's a potpourri of different cultures. You must be careful that you are inclusive. you must be careful that you are inclusive in order not to offend or make someone feel relegated. You must ensure that when you communicate, everyone's voice is heard. So effective communication in this global village, which we speak of, that has a rising trend in remote work and hybrid teams, means that there's diversity and there's inclusivity in your communication. Now, this also includes certain things like, I know for Nigeria, the issue of the gay issue is proscribed, right? It's illegal in Nigeria. However, be that as it may, we exist in a global village. So you must be careful not to say derisive things. You must be careful that in certain other clients, in certain other countries, these things are legal. Rather than saying something derogatory, it's better to hold your peace. Don't say anything at all, so that you do not run foul of someone else's sensitivities or cultural, their cultural norms. If they are permissive, you must be careful not to impose your own culture on them. So this is what inclusivity is about in communication. Now, in tech, there are certain practices that enhance collaboration in tech teams. There's the agile practice and the DevOps practice. This promotes continuous collaboration and improvements, right, in amongst tech teams. So now this is a rising trend today. In fact, all tech companies use the Agile methodology or the DevOps methodology. So you could have some people using the Scrum, but the idea behind this is that these are ways of communicating which you need to be aware of. You need to be aware of it, and you must be able to play your part in an organization or a team that uses Agile and DevOps practices. You must understand the function or the purpose behind these practices and be able to follow through. Essentially, these practices promote continuous collaboration. You keep iterating. There's nothing like perfection. You put out a product, you test it, the product is the market, you're getting feedback, you're going back and you're working on it, until, you just keep working on it. You need to be aware that this is a global trend now. Agile and DevOps practices have come to stay, and you need to understand how these practices work. So that's a short expose on effective communication and collaboration. I'll take a breath here. I've given like a background to it. I'll take a breath here, and we can now go into like some discussion and some like you'd expect that effective communication and collaboration will be particularly useful. So Zara?
Thank you. This was a wonderful discussion. Particularly, I love the bit about active listening, right? Because it's just, even though it's a bit straightforward, it's a bit difficult for a lot of people to manage, especially when you find, colleagues interrupting you during meetings or discussion, right? And I also loved where you explained that it's very, very important for you to summarize and ask clarifying questions. So, something like, oh, if I understand you correctly, this is what you're saying. It gives an opportunity for the other person to correct an impression instead of it just coming across as though you are attacking the person. So thank you. This has been very insightful, and I could tell that our fellows on YouTube couldn't even wait to start asking questions. So I'll just get right to it. I have the first question here, and the fellow is asking, as a newbie in tech, trying to connect with experienced professionals on LinkedIn, what's the appropriate way of doing that in terms of communication to get their attention?
Right. So the first question I'll be asking you is, what is your purpose behind trying to get the attention? So this is particularly important. Like I said, certain types of communication can be formal, some informal. So what is it? Is it a career issue? Is it a personal issue? So that's the first thing you have to clarify. Now, if it's on LinkedIn, most of the time, I will tell you that LinkedIn is a very serious, is a very serious tool for people. People use it for professional advancement. So you're trying to get someone's attention on LinkedIn. How have you positioned yourself to make yourself attractive to that person, first of all? What do you think you can offer to this person in return for whatever attention you're seeking? So, yes, so because this is LinkedIn, it wasn't like you met them at some conference face to face. It's LinkedIn. So most people who are on LinkedIn are there for professional reasons. So you also have to do it. Right? And you're a professional who has some value to offer. So if you carefully, you know, couch your message must be professional, must have the right words, the right tone, and you must demonstrate that in terms of professional, you know what you're about. Discuss the trending issues within your sector, right? And make the person feel attracted and like, oh, this is someone I would like, to bring on board, to either connect with or whatever. This is someone who should be good for my professional connection. So that's what you must, remember what I said about being aware of the context of the communication. So you must be aware. LinkedIn is a professional place. Most people on LinkedIn are there for professional reasons. So you must show yourself professional worthy to be connected to. So that would be, for me, that's the base before you go on. You must decide that first of all.
I agree. I absolutely, couldn't agree more. And another thing I think is just, going straight to the point. You have some people that will just come to your LinkedIn and be like, good day, ma, good day, sir. And that's all. Right. So, I think that it's always easy because people are busy these days. Just summarize whatever you have to say so that the person has an idea why you're trying to contact them and they get a sense of how important it is for you to have that connection or discussion. So thank you very much, Ma, for that wonderful response. I think that we'll be able to take one more question, right, before we wrap up. So the second question is, how do you recommend communication with clients in the tech and financial services sector? So if you have clients in that sector, as a tech person, how do you recommend communications with them that they to stand?
So, well, if they are clients, it means that you're already communicating with them, right? So, so my question to you would be, what do you want to communicate? What further things do you want to communicate? Apart from that, you must be aware of your tone, one, and then your context. What is your medium of communication? So, is it email? Is it WhatsApp? How have you people been communicating? So, whenever you're communicating with clients, generally, you must put your clients in a state where they are eager and happy to work with you, right? And then nobody likes churn. You always want your clients to keep coming back. So some way you must have effective negotiation skills to know how to negotiate effectively without rubbing the clients wrong off, the wrong way. You must have so you must have engaging skills. What kind of things are the clients interested in? ensuring that there's a flow or a cadence. If you send out weekly newsletters to your clients, it has to be by email. Because the client, oh, my client's very interested in listening. So more or less, you keep yourself as top of mind in your client's mind. So these are some things to think of when you're talking about clients. So communicating with clients is a bit different from communicating with, for instance, investors. When you communicate with investors, it should be a bit more formal. These are people giving you money. Investors are interested in information about the business. So monthly are there reports, whether they ask or not. For an investor, you should provide them with monthly reports, quarterly reports. Oh, the business is doing well. In between the monthly or quarterly reports, any important events, any important news concerning the industry or the business, communicate with your investors. So as you can see, communication is always determined by the receiving party who you're communicating with and the context in which you're
Exactly.
communicating.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This sounds to me like it's very important for you to also understand the kind of information that your clients will be interested in. And that's why, like you mentioned, if you're speaking to an investor, you provide them with information that would interest them and that is useful to that context. And the same thing. So, thank you very, very much, Mar. It's been really lovely spending the past hour with you, and I will just give you some feedback from our fellows on YouTube, right? So, someone is saying that this has been a very interesting and wonderful lecture. Thank you so much, Mark. And another person said that I'm watching live from Borno State and it's been quite informative. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, on behalf of the ministry and the fellows and everybody in the 3MTT program, I just want to thank you so much for taking out time. I know that you're busy and planning to get on a flight, so we're not going to keep you here for much longer. Thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to having you again sometimes in the future. Have a lovely day. Thank you.
All right. Thank you too. Thank you very much for having me. Have a great day too. Cheers. Have we stopped streaming? Okay. Bye, everyone. Thank you for having me.